my fellow citizens of all nations. Second part of Don Quixote of La Mancha. Our adventure basically continues. Don Quixote in second part with Sancho Panza decides to go on a second trip once more to pursue the adventure. And there are new characters introduced in the second part, the ones that never appear in the first part, and the characters in the second part have much more higher titles usually than the ones we usually meet in the first part. That's one of the main difference, because nobility appears, a genuine nobility appears in the second part. And Miguel de Cervantes shows us the type of attitude the nobility has toward the lower classes, toward the peasants. Don Quixote and Sancho become basically famous. That's a premise of the second part because of their first adventure, and now they're sort of a joke of a group. Basically everybody knows who they are, and they are sort of a joke. Everybody laughs about them, and nobility knows about them, and most influential people already have heard about him and his first adventure of madness. What we see here, and what Miguel de Cervantes tried to show us, is the attitude the society and nobility, more specifically, has toward peasants. Basically, for nobles, duke and duchess, they are very cruel toward the peasants, just because they are higher class, or because they have nothing else to amuse themselves with, because it's a medieval society. There's very few things they can do to amuse themselves, and one of the amusement is to basically pry and take advantage of madness of Don Quixote and make him do lots of unnecessary stuff. I think the fundamental conclusion that we have to make is that number of fools is infinite, or as the author would say in Latin, is that stultorum infinitus est numerus, which basically means that number of fools is infinite. I believe that this premise, stultorum infinitus est numerus, basically is a basic premise of the book, and we see that the number of fools is infinite in all sorts of encounters in entire book, basically, whether in the first part or in the second part, because it just shows itself in a humorous way how fools are just numerous and their number is endless. The end, Don Quixote dies, and before his death he becomes Alonso Quijón, and Alonso Quijón is his real self, and we have this basically distinction. On one side we have a Don Quixote, and the other side we have Alonso Quijón. And who are these two people? On one hand we have a person that is so delusional, so mad, and on the other hand we have a sane Alonso. The entire book we see how average people live their life, because we see that even so Don Quixote suffers from specific type of madness, and I've talked about it in the first part. Who are the sort of Alonsos of the book? The normal people, for example, that believe in another type of delusions and another type of nonsense. Basically, when Don Quixote awakes from his madness, he condemns everything he has said. Now that's very important, and everything he has done. He even apologized to Sancho Panza for all the madness he has done to him. But that's very important thing. And not just for any other reason, but when Don Quixote gives Sancho Panza his famous advice, usually that advice is considered quite contradictory to Machiavellian teachings, and some of the advice is quite sound, could be implemented by people, and it would actually bring benefits to actual governors. But the point is that the way Don Quixote starts his advice is that he says a very well-known common phrase from the scripture, which is the following: the beginning of wisdom is fear of God. But Don Quixote, or more specifically Alonso Quijón, the person that awakens from the madness, condemns everything he has done. So he condemns everything he has done and curses the books of chivalry and considers them madmen an utter waste of time, and realizes that he was full of madness. So we could say that Miguel de Cervantes here tried to not only condemn book of chivalry, but also tried to condemn religious books as well. And of course he did it very subtly, because he is a medieval author, and it's dangerous to confront the religion and the fanatical people that believe in, for example, in his time, the Catholic Church, which Miguel de Cervantes shows us that the Catholic Church is quite influential and powerful. So on one hand we have Don Quixote, on the other hand we have Alonso Quijón, and the one lives as a madman and dies. Basically these two people are the same person, but at the end of the day this person lives as a madman. Basically Don Quixote is a madman, lives as a madman, and dies sees as saints. Encounter between Don Quixote and Dulciana of the Boss. When Don Quixote sees her, he sees a peasant girl and he considers himself to be enchanted, and other crazy stuff happens related to that, which are quite fun and hilarious, but that's beside the point. The point is that Don Quixote is not completely mad. Like, he's still able to perceive the reality. It's just when he is away from reality, he sees reality in a delusional sense. And I believe that has something to do with the fact that he awakened as Alonso Quijano. And Life of Don Quixote shows us that nothing can be known for certain, and even his death we have a doubt what he meant. What did Alonso mean? Who was Alonso really? Was he really... I mean, I have this doubt. Was Alonso Quijano the Alonso Quijano? Who was this person at the end of the day? Was it Don Quixote? Was it Alonso Quijano? Or was Alonso Quijano also somebody else? Like some new madness? Who was he at the end of the day? Who are we? Who is this person really? And it also is an encouraging story in that sense that we don't have to wait for death to awaken. Just like Don Quixote or Alonso had to wait before his death. Like, we don't have to be like him. We can learn from him. We can learn to laugh about ourselves. We should learn to not take things so seriously. Because one of the things we see is that Don Quixote as a madman takes his madness, his idea of chivalry so seriously. And anyone who, for example, insults his fictional characters, he is willing to become violent and angry and argue with some madman in mountains about that and risk his life and others' health for sort of madness. And religious people, on the other hand, they on the opposite spectrum of Don Quixote, also have same attitude. If somebody says something about Catholic Church or about church generally, they will also have the same reaction as Don Quixote had. So one of the lessons I believe now the author shows us is that why should we have to take ideologies so seriously? Nobody can be sure that you will be on the same opinion 10 years from now or before your death. Why we have to take our ideas so seriously? But these temporary ideas which does not matter. And what is even more intriguing about this book, and this is I really what makes this book not one of the best works written on this planet so far in a fictional sense, is that at the end of the day I cannot answer this question: which one do I want to be? Which one would you be, a Don Quixote or Alonso Quijano? And if you have not read this work, you will be confused in the sense that just don't understand Don Quixote as just a madman. He's not just a madman. And don't understand Alonso as just the same person. He's not just the same person. So fundamentally, this question is not about whether you want to be a madman or you want to be a sane person. Fundamentally, it's which one would you rather be, a Don Quixote or Alonso? And when you see how average people live in this book, Quixote and Sancho Panza, they encounter all sorts of average people. You cannot give a definitive answer to this. You see how average people live and what type of nonsensical life they have, as well as you see the nonsensical life of Sancho and Don Quixote. And you cannot be certain which one do you want to be and who do you want to be at the end of the day. You can be most sane person and have a most boring and irrelevant life, or you can be this Don Quixote that, during fights these giants in his imagination. And sometimes, you might even feel envy toward Don Quixote, because he has such a fun life. He has such an entertaining life. In his adventures, I thought everybody else, it's like looking at someone that has earphones and dancing in the rain. Of course, for us, that person is madman, because we don't hear the music. But that person does hear the music. And for us to judge that person just as a madman because he hears the music and dances in the rain while we are incapable of hearing the music, it would not be true. And he hears some sort of a music. We can call this music of madness or whatever, but only he can hear it. And he dances on it. And he lives a life of it. Even if Dulciana doesn't exist, even if giants are just normal buildings or etc., at the end of the day, for him it's not. For he listens to different music. Do you want to be a Don Quixote or you want to be Alonso Quijano? I cannot answer that question. I cannot say definitely that I want to be a Don Quixote, and neither I can say that I want to be Alonso Quijano. Something in me does want to be just Alonso Quijano, that just lives in his normal life in his village, takes care of his business, and gets a wife and has family and etc. but something in me also would find it boring. Some like, there is this moment when like Don Quixote and Sancho Panza see a sea on an open sea on the first time, because they're from a tiny village, and because of because of madness of Don Quixote, they at last saw things that they would never experience. The stories that have to be told, like they had lived the life. They left at the end of the day. They left their tiny cocoon of village and they went outside of the village. And no matter how crazy, Don Quixote had lived something. And I believe that it is for us, for the readers and thinkers to decide and to make choice. But the lessons of this book are truly profound, and some of the things were really difficult to say in words. Some of the understanding we gain from this, like truly difficult to put in words, and some things are better not to be said. Some things like we have to understand here, and I understand it here. Some things which I've learned from this, and which I'm going to take in the rest of my life. And I highly recommend this book. Of course, I highly recommend Don Quixote. Hit the like button and subscribe, and comment down below. Have you already read Don Quixote? What do you think about it? Or if not, when are you going to read it?